Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, broadcasting on Channels Television, live from Lagos. Now to some of the stories that you sent to our eyewitness portal. This is the picture of a worn-out bridge in Ogogoro Road in Port Harcourt, sent in by our eyewitness reporter. He calls it a slaughter bridge and is asking authorities to look into the terrible condition of Egbelu Bridge in Rivers State. Next is this hostel, believed to be for medical students at the Usman Danfodio University Teaching Hospital in Sokoto State. The hostel has suffered neglect, and relevant bodies should urgently see to the welfare of the students. We move to Ogun State, from where our eyewitness reporter sent in a picture on your screen. It tells of a bad road from Akute to Olambe. Our eyewitness is asking the Ogun State government to come to the aid of residents by fixing the bad road. And here in Lagos, this is a picture of a moving train in Oshodi. Our reporter says passengers often jump onto moving trains and is asking the government to intervene because Oshodi is fast returning to its old ways. Thank you for your participation. Please keep them coming. A new initiative by President Muhammadu Buhari to establish a trust fund to pay for the cleanup of the Ogoni land region in the Niger Delta is underway. But Amnesty International is asking Shell to ensure a match to the new federal government's commitment by also improving their approach to cleanups during spills. Amnesty says it's scandalous that Shell, which now wants the world to trust it, has failed to properly implement the United Nations expert abuse on spills response. According to Amnesty, quote, President Muhammadu Buhari's initiative will fail and the Ogoni people will suffer as long as Shell fails to make significant changes to the way it approaches spill cleanup, end of quote. The establishment of a trust fund is a key United Nations recommendation which was published in a study on pollution 4 years ago. The fund is to be overseen by Ogoni people who own companies operating in Nigeria, with government itself contributing an initial $10 million into the fund. Ogoni land has been devastated by years of oil spills, and Shell's cleanup operations have been utterly ineffective. Well, earlier in the week, Dr. Emmanuel Kachiku was appointed Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. The President's consent for him to lead the over 50-year-old agency was seen as a move by the Presidency to sanitize the sector. And in just 24 hours, Dr. Kachiku swung into action, sacking all 8 of the NNPC's executive directors. Now, where does this lead us to? Could this be the beginning of the restructuring many Nigerians have expected? I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by Dr. Diron Fawibe, an energy expert. Welcome to the news at 10.
Thank you.
Well, the NNPC now has a new GMD, and already heads have rolled, presumably to streamline internal structures and set a new agenda. What do you actually expect the GMD to do in the short term to make NNPC functional?
Well, let me say this, that the President has actually made it a sort of saying that Dr. Kachiku, you are found worthy, both in character, learning, experience and maturity, to make some changes in NNPC. And given his pedigree, his background, and his understanding of the petroleum industry, he could make these changes. Let's look at the short-term area. There are a number of challenges NNPC is currently facing. Challenges in terms of security of energy supply to the country. An oil-producing country should not be in a terrible state in which we are today, whereby we have no fuel, either for motorists or for some other requirements in the country, like if you want to have diesel, to power your generators. Now, Dr. Kachiku, the new GMD, will have to organize a way by which we will be having security of energy supply. I used to say, yes, we'll be importing petroleum products. And in the past, we used to boast that there has not been any queue at the fuel station, but at what cost? There has to be rationalization whereby the cost of energy and the availability of energy will have to be properly rationalized. And we are looking at the issue of subsidy in this respect. Should we be paying as much as over ₦1 trillion to import petroleum products into the country? And many people who feel that petroleum subsidy should be removed are generally concerned about the high cost of securing petroleum products. In which case, if you want to secure energy products, should we be paying as much as over ₦1 trillion to meet the deficit in the supply? There's been news filtering now that the refineries have, some of the refineries have undergone turnaround maintenance, and they might be producing at about 90% capacity. Let's hope that is the case. Now, the new GMD will have to look at this area and see that the refineries are made to function, pending the time that we shall be able to get new refineries.
Okay.
That is one. Secondly, the sale of Nigerian crude oil that is currently floundering in the international market will have to be properly restructured in a way that we can boast of having the sale of Nigeria oil for quite some time, so that there must be some assurance of government revenue derived from the sale of crude oil.
All right.
Let me take those two points for now.
All right. So cost of energy, availability of energy, refineries. Okay, what about medium and long term?
Well, medium and long term will have to be some of the fundamental issues that stakeholders in the industry have been talking about. For example, we've been talking about the fact that the Nigerian National Oil Reserve has been declining without much appreciable effort to address the issue. And the oil companies generally cry out about the lack of response from the government or from NNPC in terms of cash call. This is one area that the new GMD, coming from the background of oil industry and international major oil industry, will understand this problem and know how to develop a creative method whereby government will be able to honor its obligation. To me, I feel it is totally irresponsible for us to be producing oil, making money out of it, and not putting enough back to be able to generate, to continue the business.
All right, perhaps, Doctor, this might be the point at which I should come in again. It does appear that NNPC has been described in many ways, and many of them uncomplimentary. I wonder whether what some people have said about politicians being to blame for NNPC's situation, as well as other external forces. Do you have an opinion about that?
Certainly. You see, good enough that the president was the one who created NNPC, under the military rule of our Chief General Obasanjo. And the current president was the Minister for Petroleum Resources. At that time, it was through his creative approach to solving the problems that leveraging on the experience of his technical advisor and his policy advisor, technical advisor, Chief F.R.A. Marinho, policy advisor, the late Chief S.B. Ogoni. Some of us were brigade commanders and infantry soldiers, in that enterprise, was able to put together NNPC.
All right, can I just pause you there for a second, or ask you to hold that thought? because we have also joining us now on via Skype, Professor Charles Ofuegbo. He's a former head of exploration and research at the NNPC. Professor Ofuegbo, thank you for joining us on the News at 10 tonight. We've been talking about the possibility of external forces and probably politicians, as some people have said, being responsible for some of the problems that the NNPC has currently. But at the same time, other people have spoken about the lack of integrity of some of the NNPC officials themselves. Do you have an opinion on this?
I think I perfectly agree. Most often than not, politicians tend to a large extent, overreach their limits and affect professional decisions. I also believe that if you have the right professional integrity, no matter how much pressure you politically, you must sustain and insist on your professional, one way or the other, dance around the politicians, and so begin to throw aside whatever you may call their professionalism. And that's what is happening.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I think perhaps we should also look at the role of every Nigerian. I think we are all stakeholders in the oil sector, and well, we all have a role to play to put things right.
Well, let me just say one point, make one point regarding the issue you just raised earlier. That is, the stakeholder, the shareholders of NNPC, yes, if it continues to interfere with the affairs of NNPC, even whoever you bring into the NNPC may not be able to achieve much. I was trying to bring in how the NNPC started, why there was not the kind of interference we have today, and NNPC was able to function at that time. The huge interference in the affairs of NNPC tend to worsen the situation in NNPC. Yes, we may query some of the integrity level of some of the officials of NNPC, but a major factor will be the interference from the political class. Now, when you are talking about Nigerians, individual Nigerians, the much they can do is to point out some of the anomalies going on there. They don't have direct access. They cannot picket NNPC in terms of what it's doing. They can only show understanding or disagreement about what is going on in NNPC. So what I would say in this respect is that, yes, the president now putting some people there who have been identified as capable, technically and also in terms of character. That's number one. Secondly, we back them up with support and also give them a machine order that if you do anything nasty, of course you are out. So if the president is able to go about it through this process and also give them the support, necessary support and wherewithal that they should be able to perform, I guess we may be able to see a change. But if we don't do that, we just be talking about changes that we expect that is not forthcoming. And the last point I will make is this. The new GMD is a reformer in the sense that he represented the ExxonMobil in making presentation to National Assembly, both the House of Rep and Senate, on the reform of oil and gas industry, and of course, which includes NNPC. Now, having been familiar with some of the anomalies and the structural rigidities, problems in the NNPC and in the oil industry at large, you should be able to introduce changes that will make NNPC no longer a dysfunctional organization, but a functional organization that will be able to meet the earnings of not only government, but the Nigerian public.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Diron Fawibe, for coming on to the News at 10.
Thank you.
I was also speaking, though, briefly with Professor Charles Ofuegbo on the developments in the oil sector. Now, in just a moment, our big story returns to Jos for an update on the chlorine gas explosion. Do join us again.